Energize. Happy New Year. Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. I'm a little under the weather, but very feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good. What are we
So wait,
discussing
you're
today?
under the weather but feeling pretty good.
Well, I mean, with considering, yes, yes, I am
Yeah.
feeling fantastic considering that I have a little cold, but yes, I'm feeling great.
Well, thank you for hanging in there because most folks wouldn't want to do a live stream if you weren't feeling well.
I couldn't
So,
wait.
yeah, yeah.
Good
So,
morning, guys.
yeah,
We have
good
Elaine
morning,
and
everyone. We
John.
are back
Happy New
for,
Year.
yeah, yeah, January 4, 2022.
Yes, yes. How does it feel for you?
It feels great. I'm excited. I like the new calendar year. It's always refreshing and it feels like an opportunity to start with a clean slate, you know?
It does. It does. It's fun. I mean, because we all know, it's only a difference of a few days, but it does feel fun. I like 2022. I think the consecutive numbers, the multiple twos
Kind
are,
of cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to mention this morning, I was thinking about it, was a shout out to all the people that had to work over the holidays because
Oh, yeah.
I know I had a great holiday and, there were yesterday I was thinking about the shipping, the drivers,
Right.
they worked their butt off, and I just wanna give a shout out to them because they made it through, and it is the new year. Cheers
Can
to
you
that.
say can you say but on live stream or is that allowed?
Our live stream it is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, okay.
Good morning, CM. I think CM's in the house.
Yeah, woohoo, woohoo. Yeah. Well, so what are we talking about today, Heidi?
Well, we are talking about professional communications, and not in, I think, the traditional sense, but more in, which was your idea and a great idea, more in the sense of, what's professional, what's considered professional today. In the day of texting, modern communication, LinkedIn now has video messaging. So, voice messaging, which I've already received a
Right,
voice message
right.
over the weekend. And
Mhm.
yesterday I got a video message. So when
Oh,
I typed out a message, good morning. I'm wondering if that one of those is Lisa. Um, but good morning, Lisa CM, and way to power through. Thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, respect.
Yeah, thanks. So LinkedIn now, I typed out a message and someone replied with a video, which was fantastic. It
Oh,
was
wow.
interesting. Yeah. I'll send you one
Wow.
later today so you
Yeah,
can see how it
yeah,
feels.
we'll to check that out. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so today communications is very different than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago, and there's so many different ways to communicate. What do you think is the most effective way to communicate professionally with your coworkers, maybe customers? Well, what do you prefer?
Uh, Goodbye, Zan, as I wanted to say, give a good morning to him. Thank you for joining.
Hey,
Um, I,
hey.
w- and we appreciate your support in the live stream.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you. I it depends what your role is, I feel, but definitely email. When there's conflict, a phone call or a Zoom
Okay.
never hurts. When you're in sales or development, I think I think that's even an even better question is what is the most effective way of communication? Um, so I would say it's up for grabs. I'm not sure. But I feel
Yeah.
that with coworkers, we don't use a software. Do you guys use a software in your company such as Slack or yes, John, I agree. Face to face is nice. I miss that too with my coworkers. But do you guys use a software where you're at to communicate, like
So
Slack or
so instant messenger, email, text, all of the above, and
yeah,
then posting in a share site or something, those kinds of things, that those are all things that we see. But back to the different types of communication, and John said, "Hey, face to face." I think verbal communication is ideal, and face to face is probably the best because when you're face to face, you're able to read body language. And body language is about 70 some percent of all communication. So being able
yeah.
to read the looks on people's faces, the body language, how they're, like if they're kind of curled up, they're not really happy. They say if people are touching their neck a lot, they feel threatened. So being able to read that, I think, is really important.
Well, there you threw a little tip in there. I never heard when people are touching their
Oh
neck a
yeah,
lot, they
yeah,
feel threatened.
absolutely. So it's important to be able to kind of read the room. In fact, um, I learned that in a class that was about deceit detection, which was fascinating about how to tell if somebody's lying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had
So
never I had never heard the neck one.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So there's a number of, I mean, we say things non-verbally without even knowing that we're saying these things. So have you ever heard of the duper's delight? Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so that's when I am telling you a lie and you can see the little curl come up in my face there. Just a little, I'm telling you a lie and I'm smiling just a little bit. So you will see that a lot in um, criminal investigations where the news is interviewing somebody and they say, "Well, I don't know where my family member is," and then they kind of smile just a little bit, and then you go, "Oh, they're lying." So there you go.
Well, this is an interesting offset. Um, I
So
agree,
yes,
Morgan. With the
yes,
ability to video chat easily these days, that would be the best alternative to true face to face.
absolutely. And,
I
and
actually
and how
go
much do you
ahead, Mike.
video chat? How much do you video chat, Heidi? Do you do it a lot or not much?
Yes, I do it a lot with coworkers, with customers. We utilize video chat a lot, which is Teams, Zoom. So yeah, we do. We actually, I was going to mention yesterday that there was some miscommunication between a couple of team members. Always on invoicing yesterday,
Weird how that works.
and I know. And it was great because we called a meeting versus keep going over email like on the confusion. And so I agree with Morgan. The video chat face to face is certainly best. I miss reading the room. I'm much I feel like I'm much warmer in person. I think I'm more colder via video or and maybe I'm wrong and you can interrupt me and tell me that I'm
No, I
wrong.
think you're totally wrong. I think you're great. Great.
But I think I'm more warmer in person and more well received. But um, definitely video chat.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that video chat is a unnatural act for us. Looking into a camera is a little bit different than looking at somebody's face, right? And so it can be pretty intimidating. And there's a lot of folks that are introverted that just aren't as comfortable with it. And so, what advice would you offer them if they're like, it's really not camera off? I don't, what would you say?
Well, I would say a few things. First of all, any opportunity I had to camera on because I enjoyed work so much. And so when we first started gravitating towards more video, I wanted to show that at any minute I was prepared. Like I love my job, my position. So I didn't mind video so much, but it did take about 6 months of consecutive video use to truly get comfortable. I think to focus on the other person and not yourself and the
Right,
flaws. And
right,
it takes a lot of consecutive use. So I think that the advice would be to focus on your group, to truly be intentional with focusing on your audience.
right,
And like Elaine said, it does take longer to connect. Even if you're on an hour Zoom, it even versus an in-person meeting, it takes longer to connect even on that Zoom.
mhm.
A lot of times I wanted to get right down to business because that's what I was comfortable with on the camera. I wasn't comfortable with small talk on the
You're not
camera.
comfortable with small talk and like, talking about the weather and stuff. That's not true, Heidi.
Well, now I am, but a year and a
We
half
were just
ago, I
talking
was
about the
like,
weather before we went live.
now I'm comfortable. We're talking about for people that are uncomfortable. It,
Gotcha.
it was hard. So just be intentional about it. Just
Yeah,
be,
yeah, yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Jim,
Yeah, Heidi's
everything's
getting
not a
straight to
sales.
the point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the difference between verbal and written communications. And what are some of the differences and maybe some of the advantages and disadvantages of the written communication?
Well, the written communication, some of the advantages for me would be getting streamlining to the subject. So there
Hmm.
is no small talk there with coworkers. But the disadvantage is it's easily misconstrued. And with that, I do have a tendency to add emojis to make it come more comfortable, but I never do
Right.
via email. So I'm excited to dive right into that emoji topic. I apologize.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that folks, when you read an email, you kind of read it in the worst possible kind of tone.
You're right. Why
You
is
just
that?
default to that,
I wonder
especially
why.
if yeah, and so, but that's our don't you agree? Don't you think that most of us kind of default to when you're reading an email, you read it like it's like an angry or a very passionate discussion.
Yes, I think we are quick. We read an email to reply. So thank you, everyone, to read emails negative. And Lisa or CM wrote, written doesn't convey tone and can be misread with meaning. I agree.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. I think, and because of that lack of tone, I think that would be one of the reasons that people read emails to reply. There's an action that's associated when you're reading an email. So I think that
hmm.
comes into play. Why does Twitter, why did Twitter make people read emails negatively? I'm not on Twitter a
Well,
lot.
yeah. So Jim is well because I think overall Twitter is a pretty sarcastic and angry place. And I don't
That's
think
why
I'm
I
going
meant.
out on a limb by saying that. I think that
I do know
overall,
that, yeah.
it's become a very negative environment where everything is, critical, and so I think that's not helped us at all. And that's
Yeah.
part of the reason we have Energize, is because we wanted to develop an uplifting,
Yeah,
positive place for
totally.
people to come and build up their lives and help them get better professionally and personally, right?
Totally. Yes. Agree. What a great way. Yes. Completely agree. Yeah.
So back to the email. Are there things that you mentioned emojis? Is that professional, do you think, to use those in your email communications?
My first thought is no.
Okay.
And email communications, no, you rarely get the opportunity. And I will use them if someone else uses them first. And I like when someone sends a smiley emoji. I like
Mm-hmm.
that in an email. It's like, oh, what
Mm-hmm.
a nice surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think it's professional or unprofessional in the text message
It's
or
it
social media, LinkedIn message, or
so it's neutral. It's completely okay.
not an email. Well,
Not an email.
I don't have a judgment on it, but I can see both sides. I
Yeah.
think it also, just like an email.
Jim sent an email with praise. Yeah. You're yeah.
I think
I
it
don't
can be
know.
misconstrued.
Yeah, I don't know, Heidi. I think it's perfectly acceptable to put a smiley face in an email, especially if when I type it out, hey, can you get me this by, whatever time? Sorry for the last minute request, smiley face. I mean, don't you think that that's okay? Because what I want to do, especially if I'm asking someone to do something, is not be barking at them. And the way that I can do that is to put in a emoji.
Yeah, I'm reading some of the comments. It all depends on the
Uh-huh.
nature of the message.
Uh-huh.
Conversation, probably okay, business not. Yeah.
I know.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, Mike. It is hard not to add that smiley face emoji when you want the reader to do something. I agree.
Hmm.
I agree. But I some of the coworkers just don't fall for the gift card scam.
Just click this link, smiley face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Business, not a lawyer. Business, not a lawyer will have a field day with. Yeah, yeah, true. I if
True.
I
And
think
that's another
I
good point about professional communications is, listen, um, understand that everything that we write is discoverable. So if there's ever a lawsuit or whatever, anything that you write that is pertaining to that legal issue could be up on a screen in court, and you might have to be explaining what you meant, right? And
yeah.
so it's really dangerous to put sarcastic things in an email, especially about something that may have to do with a potential lawsuit or regulatory compliance or those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think that definitely hope if you're speaking of classified information, hopefully there's a tagline in email with
Or confidential,
confidentiality.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything could be brought up in court now. Please don't write emails
Yeah.
detailing your legal dealings.
And absolutely, that's where you should do face to face or phone call.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so what about we're kind of past the day of the email forward jokes. Do you remember those?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, we are past the day of the email for jokes
Yeah. I
in the
mean,
work office.
Yeah, yeah, but because you used to come in every morning and you'd have, whatever, seven jokes in your inbox, and you'd start your morning there and you'd forward it to your friends and all that stuff, and so I think that's kind of gone away though.
Yes, which I'm okay with. I think it's gone to
You're
the texting.
Well, what about joking with a coworker verbally? Is that okay in today's professional environment? What are your thoughts there, Heidi?
I love humor. So I think joking verbally or even via text, because for some reason text is a, it's a known, more casual environment. It's the invention of the internet was heading towards.
Yeah,
Jim.
trouble.
You are so creative, Jim. The I love humor, so I love a good joke. I love, and honestly, you can tell a person's personality because some people take joking too far. So
Hmm.
you can read a lot, but I love humor. Absolutely, humor is professional. Humor is a good aspect in every part of life. So, you know,
Yeah, I do too. I'd like to think I'm a pretty funny person. And I crack myself up all day, every day. However, I am aware that there are folks that are not, they don't have a great relationship with humor, and that's okay, right? And
give an
so
example. Have you been caught in a situation where someone?
all the time where I'll say something that I think is really funny, and it's crickets in the room, right? And I'll go, well, that was a joke. Um, so yeah, totally calling me out. But I think that you got to recognize and understand who you're communicating with enough to know what's what's fair game and what's off limits with that person, and especially in today's age where someone might take something the wrong way and be offended or whatever. I think you really have to be aware of what are the boundaries and what is off the table completely, right? Because there are some things that are just completely inappropriate professionally, and then there's
Yes,
some folks that you might have more of a better relationship with, maybe, let's say, and that you
yes.
can joke around with and have a little bit more fun with, which I think is great for productivity and teamwork and team development, is to be able to give your teammate a hard time as a sign of affection. I think that's wonderful, but
I
not
agree.
everybody operates that way, and I think we have to always remember that.
Well, I think, it's a good thing that we began this conversation on nonverbal then, because
Hmm.
sign of maturity is how to read a room. And we
Hmm.
shouldn't judge those that are uncomfortable with that. You might end up in front of HR, John says.
Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah,
everyone,
absolutely.
not everyone understands sarcasm. I sometimes struggle with not using sarcasm, and so do I. So do I. So do I. And that sarcasm is appropriate. There are times where sarcasm is not appropriate, especially in an email, which I am speaking. You're preaching to the choir with me, because especially in an email where there's some sort of miscommunication, sarcasm is definitely a default of mine,
Right,
because not in a negative. I don't like to make people feel inferior, but I like to address any awkwardness with, making making everyone on equal playing ground,
right.
so I like to address, like a previous episode you guys said, you have to know the audience in the room
Yep,
for sure.
yep, yep.
Thank you. Yeah. um I appreciate we have a repeat viewer.
I know we got a loyal. It's kind of a cult following, is what I'm told.
Yeah, okay. No, we love it. But just like a little sarcasm there. I mean, I default to sarcasm. So Morgan, you're absolutely right. There's some inappropriate and appropriateness when it comes into play with that. I think being able to read the room and diffuse any situations that do come up, because there's always the one coworker, definitely the one coworker, and I'm thinking of several examples that I appreciate because they've given me a good inside laugh when they take it too far, but they really look silly. They really look
Right.
silly.
So what about writing an email when you're angry?
Hmm. Ask the viewers.
Yeah, yeah, what do you think about that? You know, you're
You
angry,
shouldn't do it.
you're emotionally charged, something is, somebody has said something in an email, and and maybe you understood it, maybe you misunderstood it. What do we think?
I think a phone call, a, hi Joseph, nice to see you. Get Yeah, Jim brought up a good point. Get someone to read before sending.
Hmm.
Um, I don't like, some circumstances don't allow for someone else to read before sending, but that is a great get some other eyes on it. Just don't send it when you're angry. It's
Yeah.
just, and I'm saying this to myself at all. If you're reactive, you should not send an email. You should take a moment, move on to another task, and come back to that.
Hmm.
Um, don't use all caps. That's actually a great point. Don't use all
Hmm.
caps. Usually a
Because
big
you're
mistake.
yelling. Yeah, if you're yelling, if you use all caps, yeah.
And
Yeah.
they say have someone else read it again. I agree with that, like Jim said as well. So that's follow the 24-hour cool down period. Now that's hard. That I agree with you though, MJ. It's hard to wait a full 24 hours. And Joseph says that that's a hard no, emailing with when you're angry. Wait a bit and calm down. Um, no exclamation points. That's so hard, Joseph. You
It
said
is
no
it
ex.
is hard, right? It's hard to because it feels good to hammer out that response. And and the kind of the problem is, and we've all done it, right? You come back an hour later, the next day, and you look at what you said and you go, I wish I wouldn't have said that, right? And sometimes it could be a complete misunderstanding that you misinterpreted what the person was saying to you, and then you come back and you fly off the handle. I mean, you're only going to look bad. So it's much better to, I would say, set that aside, go do something else or work on another work task, and then come back to it later. Maybe have a phone call, a Teams call, whatever, and talk to that person later. But responding in that moment, I'd say it's fair to say that nothing good is going to come if you respond emotionally in that moment.
I agree with you. I think you said sometimes it turns into miscommunication. I would say all the time. I would say
Hmm.
99% of the time. And you're absolutely right. Nothing good is going to come out of it. I do like, exactly, take your time, walk around, think a while for sure.
Yeah.
I do like to set a meeting. I appreciate that. Because then you're not being passive aggressive, but I like to address things. Um, and I don't necessarily know if I like to, but I do, and it is just who I
Wait.
am.
So you thrive on conflict? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, no, not at all.
You
Not
go
at
looking for
all.
trouble?
No. No. Maybe in my youth. No, I'm kidding. No, but I like to say, instead of just not replying, like MJ says, let me reflect on this and get back to you. Or
That's a
it's,
wonderful way to say it.
yeah, or,
Yeah.
and that's okay to say that.
Yeah.
Or let's put a meeting on the schedule tomorrow to go over this for 30 minutes. Um,
Well, yeah, and I've got a follow-up question. What is the proper response time to an email? Like, do you need to respond immediately? I mean, or can you, in is an hour later okay? Is no response okay? Can you respond the next day? That's
You
a
can
that's a
res-
tough one.
you can respond, well, it just depends if you're a leader or, but you can respond within 24 hours for sure, I think. Absolutely.
Hmm.
I
I,
don't. I
I'd agree
usually
with that.
good.
I'd agree
I
with
agree
that.
too.
Well, let's shift a little bit over to talking about emails and the to and copy.
Oh,
Heidi, talk to us about the to line and then the copy line.
oh, I can't. I feel like I'm being attacked right now. This came up yesterday.
Uh-oh.
Um,
It's a safe space, I
and
promise. It's just
yeah,
you and I talking and maybe 100 other people.
a hundred. Don't flatter yourself. Uh, I don't know if I want to lead this conversation because I'll just go out and say I feel very strongly about productive copy use. I I I blind copy your supervisors about this broadcast. I believe that I do not like excessive copying. I don't like to be excessive copied.
Yeah.
I don't like to speculate about problem solving on a copy. I thank you, Joseph.
All right,
I
Joseph.
like yeah, I like to brainstorm on a copy. I actually love to brainstorm on a copy and I like to throw random thoughts in there. But when we're problem solving, it just seems like people are respond it's almost like an instant message. I
Yeah.
have other points. How do you feel about a copy?
Well, I think we all get lots of email, and if an email were a piece of paper, it would be a lot of trees that'd be gone, right? So, um,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, I think that you need to limit your distribution to folks that really need to know. An email is a wonderful tool for updating people on situations, progress, status. It's not a great tool to give directives. It's okay. You got to be very aware of how you say things, but specifically back to the to and copy line, the to line should be, hey, this needs to go to the action, or the communication is going to that person. A copy line is maybe another stakeholder that needs to know that the to person is going to be doing these tasks, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I agree with you. I think that we get overly, I'll call it ambitious with our to and copy. And that can lead to a thing where you get so many email. I call it email fatigue, where, and remember when we talked about productivity in the workplace, Heidi? I
Yeah.
think that email and instant messenger are one of the biggest productivity killers out there, because people spend their time responding, reading, typing, and not working on their tasks. And so, while it is a great tool to be able to communicate instantaneously, I think that they are horrible for productivity. What do you think?
I I completely agree with you that sometimes a phone call is necessary, and if that person doesn't answer the phone, expect that you're going to get a phone call back, you know?
Hmm.
People are so after
Hmm.
um that instant response and instant gratification that I
Right.
completely agree with you. I
Yeah.
think that a good rule for emails is 5 sentences or less, and I don't always stick to this rule, but in a general rule, if you need to send over 5 to 6 sentences in one email, you might want to do a phone call, reconsider
Right.
that email,
Right.
etc. But that's the type, excuse me, that's the rule that I use, and I try to keep emails 5 to 6 sentences or less. Did
Yeah, and I love bullets. And
Yeah.
when I look at an email and it's a few paragraphs long, I think, oh, brother, here, like I'll have to look at that later, right? I like quick, to the point communications. I
I
think that
will
that's
Yeah. Sometimes multiple paragraph emails, especially during COVID, in sales, not with coworkers, but in sales, when you're going over email written in red pen, when you're going over a
Mhm.
product or technical information, yes, they definitely get boring. I agree with Joseph. But yeah, I agree with you. Coworkers, long email, yes. And I've sent them before. You hate it, and it's not. There is a 99, there's a 150% chance that that long 3 paragraph email is going to get misconstrued. That's a phone
Right,
call.
right. Okay. Well, what about IM? What about instant messaging? What do you think?
What about, well, I definitely don't think those should be long. I think those should, oh, good question. I just saw Morgan. Um, I am, sorry, I'm getting distracted. My
Yeah.
attention. I am is a great way to communicate in 3 sentences or less.
Uh-huh.
Let's get to the point and move on. I agree, Joseph.
But what, I find instant messaging it's a wonderful thing when I need something, but it's a horrible thing when someone needs something of me and I'm working on a task and focused and that pops up and then all of a sudden I'm, well, what does that say? And oh, I'm here's and typing out a response and then I'm coming back. And if you get what, 4 or 5 of those in an hour, how much productivity did you lose on your focus time? Right. And
A
so
lot.
again, I think if there's one thing that leaders can do to help their bottom line is to really shift this kind of this environment where we have this instant need for our questions to be answered to go, hey, I may send you an email, I may send you an IM, but if you are busy, I do not expect you to respond right away, right? I want you to focus on your thing or in your work task, get to a logical stopping point, and then respond. But we all feel pressure to respond immediately when someone, especially a manager, supervisor, asks us something. Um, what do you think?
I so who's at fault there? We do all feel, a lot of us, especially high performers, feel pressure to respond right away. But then the sender should be conscious of that and know, like, I've now worked for my boss a little over almost a year and a half, and I got to know his style and of communication in his work days. So I don't, unless it's a need, I don't always send emails. I'll save them and send, first thing in the morning the next day, so that he can decide when he wants to respond throughout that day or whatnot. And I also, let's, not dance around self-sufficiency,
Mm-hmm.
it's, and I know Morgan has probably, all of us, it seems like all of us that, are back here week after week are all leaders. And I think all problem solvers versus, solution providers versus, um, not just bringing more questions or problems, but self sufficiency is very, very important. If you can find that answer on your own, no matter how difficult it is to find that answer, that other person is not your assistant. So you need to find that answer. And then if you have feedback on, it's with the group in general at a meeting one day, that's the appropriate time to bring it up. So
Mhm.
if you still have to find that answer, even if it takes an hour of your time, save that feedback, bring it up at the next meeting. Like, it takes me too long to find
Right,
these answers. But that
right,
doesn't mean that you take shortcuts unless it's a known peer-to-peer project or something like that. Or
right,
you guys are friends and you feel comfortable saying, I can't take on your question right now or something like that. But it's very
right.
important to be self-sufficient. Um,
Yeah, I think that's great. And let's see, what is the LinkedIn user? Is that CM or is that
Lisa, we feel we
Lisa?
have to answer phone calls, emails right that minute. It's hard and distracting to continue
Yeah,
working on your tasks, knowing someone
yeah.
needs something from you. Let me preface this by saying, because I could see her too. If any of our potential customers are watching this, which this is a more casual live, please always feel free to interrupt my day. This is talking about coworkers
Heidi does
only.
not want any interruptions. She will take
Yeah,
calls between.
it's a matter if a customer wants to call me now during the live call. No, I'm kidding. But this is more coworker based. But I
Yeah,
think that we do feel I think it shows consideration when the other coworker knows, hey, that person is going to feel pressure to respond to this right away. So even though you send an email saying no rush, that does work and that does help. But
right.
there are drafts, and you could, instead of saying no rush, you could just wait and send that email at a better time, at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, something like that.
Yeah. Well, now have you ever worked with the coworker that sends an email and then immediately calls you and goes, "Hey, did you see that email that I sent you?"
Yes, and I think we've all been that coworker too. Yes, but that is how do you respond? I always say yes I did, and then I don't elaborate. So when someone calls,
Wow, that's
I
really
do.
passively aggressive.
I feel like it's not. I feel like it's direct. So if someone sends me an email, or I'll say a coworker sends me an email, and then a coworker calls and says, "Did you get that email?" I'll say, "Yes, I did." And if it's quiet, I'll say, "How can I help?" But instead they should just be honest of what they're after and not say, "Did you get that email?" No, like, um, can I talk to you right now about something I want to talk to you about? You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Well, what about meeting invites? Like, if I send you a meeting invite that the meeting starts in 18 minutes from now, is that okay? I checked your calendar. You're open.
Oh, I don't know. I've never done that to someone, and I've never worked with someone that's done that to me.
Well, and it happens. And what I say is, because first, I mean, great, you check calendars, and if you have the ability to see, wonderful. The problem is just because someone doesn't have a meeting on their calendar does not mean they're available. So,
Well, of course, yeah.
and the other thing is, what I would recommend is, hey, I want to call a meeting about this topic. Here's the agenda. What day times are convenient for you? And make sure that you're giving your team plenty of notice before you ask for a meeting, because again, companies are around to make money, and that comes from being efficient. And if I had that hour dedicated to getting a work product out the door, a delivery out the door,
Uh,
and you take that from me, um, that's not really in the best interest of the organization.
I agree with that, and I could see where that could happen. And it's crazy that some people, and let's give them a little bit of credit. They're so entrenched in their job or that
Hmm.
issue that they feel sometimes people don't take a moment to think that other people have other
Right.
priorities. But
Right.
you're absolutely right. An available calendar does not mean that you are truly available for all people.
Right.
You know, like I just said, I don't mind getting interrupted at any moment at any of the day with any questions on products. That short notice meeting should only be in an emergency. I
Yep.
agree.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Is this an emergency? But I don't mind, you know, my calendar is sometimes left open for specific customers or targets or
Right.
whatnot. That doesn't mean that I am at someone's, just because I'm at work does not mean that I am completely at someone's disposal as far as coworkers.
I encourage folks to block time on their calendar to have focus time.
That's a great
And
point.
and I think that again, you might say, well, that's being selfish. Well, is it? I mean, is it
No,
selfish
it's
to
being
to
productive.
block time to make sure that you're getting work product done? Again, because in today's society, we get bombarded with communication, whether it's verbal, it's written, and what the danger is, you can look up at the end of the week and go, I've got none of my work done, but I've
Yeah.
communicated a whole lot, right? So I think we all need to be more disciplined in getting back to the basics, in that spend time heads down working on things, and and focus, right? Because I think that we're losing that as a workforce, as a country. I think we're losing the ability to get things done, and that's a real risk for our future.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I would say
well, so what about text? Is it professional to to text coworkers? You got personal phones, you got work phone, whatever. And then a follow up question to that, Heidi, is I love to use GIFs. Is that because I crack myself up all day long. What do you think? Text. It seems to be less formal, and is it okay to use professionally?
um I thought that was called GIFs, GIF, GIF.
No, no.
It's GIF?
It is gyros.
Okay. All right. Back to your question.
See, I told you I crack myself up all day long.
Yes, yes, you do. You are funny. Text is not unprofessional. So, text is professional. It is a more, in my opinion, a more casual form, but it's not unprofessional. I don't think I don't think GIFs and emojis are 150% professional in all terms. I think it just depends. I text a lot of contractors I work with are very busy, and text is the best way to communicate them when they're on the field, in the field or whatnot. So in case they can see something, they don't necessarily, due to safety, respond right then. But texts are forever. Also, lawyers love them
Yep,
for
they
sure,
do.
John.
Yeah.
But I think that texts are professional. I think it's great to have closer coworkers that you can include emojis and GIFs with, or GI, whatever that term is. But yes.
Gyros. They're not euros.
What does the audience think? What do the viewers or whatever LinkedIn people are, our connections, our friends, what do they think? Are texts professional?
I think they're a yeah. It's almost, in today's age, it's almost rude to call someone out of the blue. Like it's almost like you expect to get the text of, hey, can you chat, or are you free, or and you don't get as many just out of the blue phone calls, which is interesting. Is that good or bad, Heidi? What do you think?
I don't mind out of the blue phone calls because then I can answer. I preface this by saying I'm a high performer. I'm working. Very rarely will you call me during the day working from home or on the road and I'm not working. So I don't mind the out of the blue phone calls.
Okay.
I will not answer though if I'm busy with a customer, or
Right.
I will, and I send it to voicemail right
Hold on. I'm
away.
calling you right now to see if you're going to answer.
I send it to voicemail right away so that the coworker knows that I'm busy with a
Well,
customer.
isn't that rude to like reject the call? Like when you call somebody and they like immediately goes to voicemail, isn't that kind of rude? Shouldn't you just let it ring and then that way you're not
No,
rejected?
I know, because I want them to know that I am busy, that at that moment, and I'll get back. I want them to know that I've seen that they're calling. I don't think it's rude. I like being productive.
I'd be curious to hear what the audience thinks about declining a phone call. Is that rude?
I don't think so. Again, know your audience. Younger people seem to prefer text, while more seasoned people prefer
Right.
calls, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that can be a crutch. And you know, I've worked with many young folks over the years, and I would say today's younger folks are even they'd rather not pick up the phone and call. Let's just say that. And you go, well, have you talked to such and such? Well, no, I sent them an email or I sent them a text and I haven't heard back. Well, um, remember, people are very busy, and so if they don't respond, then maybe it's time to pick up the phone and call. Define
Yeah.
rude. Yeah.
Rude, he's speaking of when they said, you
Yeah,
said, is
yeah.
it
So if
rude?
when I try to call you, Heidi, and you reject my call, I have an issue with rejection. So, you know, like that really hurts my feelings.
Speaking of rejection, we gotta get back to work now. It's 8:52.
Well,
This
yeah,
conversation,
folks, how it time flies. These go so fast.
I love it. I really
There,
appreciate all your guys' comments. And Mike, it is so much fun doing this with you. And
oh,
Jim, thank you for Jim
yeah.
Kunkel. He's awesome behind the scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, build out productions. So what are we talking about next week? We're talking about handling conflicts and providing diplomatic feedback.
Oh,
And
I
since
love it.
Heidi thrives on conflict, we should do great at that one.
That's not true. What if someone only watches 10 seconds of this video and that's
Oh,
where
yeah, for the record, that's not true. Happy New Year, everyone. We're excited to bring you a full year of Energize on
Whoa, are
Tuesday
we committing
morning.
to full year?
A full year. Yeah,
Okay,
go
all
big or
right.
go home. Full
No, I'm
year.
kidding. All right, love it. Thank you
Have a
guys. We
great
will
day,
see you next
everyone. Take
Tuesday.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.